Over the past decade, we've seen an alarming amount of reboots springing from the soils of beloved characters and franchises, especially so in terms of cartoons and anime. And with Fully Cooley Season 2 on the rise, as well as a new Thundercats reboot that is universally despised, I thought I'd take the time to discuss my issues with a lot of reboots, and my overall fears of upcoming ones. Of course, I'm totally going to be riffing on Cartoon Network while I do it too, because Cartoon Network is the predominant hand of this new era of reboots. And also, it's basically common household fact that they're just the fucking worst at this point. How could you do this to me, Cartoon Network? I trusted you with my childlike bliss, and this is how you repay me? You son of a bitch! So yeah. Back to reboots. To fully understand the issue with a lot of modern reboots, we must first look into the creation behind most of these reboots. You see, this all started back in 2013. Cartoon Network, in a desperate attempt to bait a lot of their older audiences back into watching their program, promised a new revival to an immensely beloved superhero squadron that had proven itself successful in Cartoon Network's history. I am, of course, talking about Crypto the Super Dog. I mean Teen Titans. And of course, the greatest way to pay homage to the old series while still making a new iteration for a new generation is to hire some guys who have never even seen the original show itself.
No continuity with the old show. Cool. Someone's gonna ask that.
No continuity.
So, we've never even seen the old show.
No, I saw a couple episodes. It's good. It was a good show. Good show.
Now today, that doesn't still stand, as the creators are obvious big Teen Titans fans, because I guess they actually decided to sit down and watch the show mid-season of the reboot. But regardless, considering the new designs in this infamous piece of footage, a lot of people were already on board with hating it. And as childish as it is to admit, people really don't like change all that much. Now, admittedly, I don't think this show deserved as much shit as it has received when it first came out. And this is coming from a fan of the original Teen Titans show as a little bitch-ass kid. I can't begin to vocalize my disappointment for the show not being a continuation, but realistically speaking, it's not as if Cartoon Network would have made a sequel to the show like 7 years later, when there's very clearly a new demographic of children who are watching Cartoon Network at that time. And I can't blame the creators for trying something different. I don't hate the show for what it actually is, even if it can get pretty annoying sometimes. I hate it for what it's done to Cartoon Network. The immense success of the show relayed back to Cartoon Network, and we all know whenever something's successful, big corporations always try to milk the fuck out of it. Cartoon Network's idea of milking it was replacing over 70% of the schedule with only Teen Titans Go and trying to replicate that success with other reboots, such as the now infamous Powerpuff Girls reboot, or the also now infamous Ben 10 reboot that has the art style of a fucking Disney Junior cartoon. Both of these reboots are the afterbirth of this show's success. Both reboots were made by people who showed a clear misunderstanding for the original source material. And finally, both reboots are fucking garbage. And wouldn't you know, there's a new one on the way that people already hate because of its clear misunderstanding for the original source material, as well as what has happened from the last 3 reboots that Cartoon Network has made. And for the record, I'm not counting Scooby-Doo reboots because as far as I'm concerned, Scooby-Doo has been rebooted since the day that it crawled out of the uterus of Hanna-Barbera itself. It's gotten so bad for a while that people were placing bets on what the next reboot would be. There was talk that maybe it'd be Johnny Bravo, or maybe it'd be Ed, Edd n Eddy, all while completely ignoring some of the cartoonists who actually wanted to revive their older IPs onto the channel. John Dilworth had repeatedly talked about reviving Courage the Cowardly Dog for years now, as has the creator for Kids Next Door. Hell, the only reason why Samurai Jack was picked up for one last season was because Adult Swim picked them up. It has nothing to do with Cartoon Network. In fact, they were ignoring Tartakovsky for years prior to the Samurai Jack season. You of course also have concern for when the original writers do actually have a say in their own reboots. Because even though they did have a hand in writing for the original show, there's always that fear that maybe, due to the popularity of that certain show, they'll become blinded as to what actually made that show good to begin with. That sounds absurd, but you have to consider this. A lot of these reboots happen over 10 years after these shows have ended. Over that time, its audience will begin to grow a new appreciation for it, because as you grow older, you naturally just feel nostalgic for the things you grew up with. It is because of these circumstances that these creators can fall into becoming fans of their own work, and in doing so will fail to realize what made the original show so memorable to begin with, meaning that the reboot will become nothing more than just a shallow imitation. The best example for this is whenever John K. attempted to reboot Ren and Stimpy on Spike TV for a more adult audience, called Adult Party Cartoon. Over the course in which he was fired from his own show, John K. only became a fan of his own work, and therefore failed to see what made the original so hilariously ridiculous. John K. then attempted to just staple crude, edgy sex jokes onto the show because, I mean, hey, the original show had a lot of adult implications too, right? Not realizing that the implication made the joke funnier as it was a lot more subtle and hidden, which is also, of course, disregarding how Adult Party Cartoon's idea of a joke is simply just the idea of sex or showing a boner. And voila, you have one of the most notoriously awful reboots of all time. One that couldn't even air 3 out of the 6 episodes that were scheduled to air on TV because of how panned and universally hated it was. You can also point to The Cleveland Show, which isn't technically a reboot, but it might as well be, as it holds nearly the same exact writing and same character blueprints as Family Guy. Not only was there absolutely no point in making it, but also Seth MacFarlane had attempted to recreate the same kind of universe as Family Guy. Being so blind as to what made Family Guy so successful in the first place, Cleveland Show is now seen as nothing more than a frail imitator. My final dive into this topic is just the fan bases themselves. Ask anyone with an actual brain and they will agree that fan bases are the worst part of any product. And just to clarify, I'm not talking about people who are fans of something or who get excited at the things they like. I'm talking about people who are so shallow that they make every piece of their life based around that product. Fact of the matter is, fan bases are usually an issue because they don't know what they want. So, I have an article that says 15 old kids shows that need a dark reboot. So, we're gonna look into, you know, some of these kids shows that need a dark reboot. We're gonna find out why that is today. Number 15. Thundercats. Thundercats, ladies and gentlemen. Just think about what you could, all the possibilities you could have with a dark Thundercats reboot. Number 14. Captain Planet? Excuse me? What the fuck? Captain Planet? Are you being for fucking real right now? A dark reboot of Captain Planet is almost too easy. Yeah, it's so easy to make a guy that looks like this, just put him in a real universe. I bet if you just photoshopped him in some scenes of Watchmen, he just fits in naturally. Number 10. Johnny Bravo.
That suicide is painless. It brings on many changes.
What the fuck could you even do with the dark Johnny Bravo? Like, what? Is he gonna go to jail for sexual misconduct? Are you gonna put him in a situation in which his own masculinity lands him in the big house? What the fuck? Keep going with the list. Jesus Christ. Number 8. Alf. Alf. They're talking about this Alf. They're talking about this fucker. This guy. On paper, Alf is a pretty dark concept. An alien life form crash lands into the garage of a suburban family. He befriends the family as they protect him from a government organization out to study him. Alf escaped his home planet that exploded after nuclear war, and he's always trying to kill the family cat, as cats are often treated like home cattle. Yeah, it's real dark. Who knows, maybe one of these days we can see DC pick it up for their cinematic universe, am I right? Number 1! Jim and the Holograms. So yeah, basically put, fan bases are fucking awful. On the very rare occasions that some big corporation will actually decide to listen, you then have just these fucking shit stains asking for a dark reboot of fucking Johnny Bravo. And we all know that when you take influence from the wrong people, you may end up like Bill Cosby or O.J. Simpson. Not saying you'll end out a rapist or a murderer if you're involved with the fan base, but you should probably think about what you're asking for, as it could very easily turn into the next Powerpuff Girls reboot, or the next Ben 10 reboots, or the next fucking Thundercats reboot. God, fan bases are so fucking dumb. If you like this shit, go check out my other fuck. I got a lot of videos that you could check out, so yeah, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This is Exro saying good night and say no to reboots.